Okay, so we have started recording. So let me welcome everyone this evening. As I said, my name is Christopher Godera. I'm a consultant to the Pestalozzi Trust from the organization called Learn Free. I was asked to sit in and do this, helping people to go through how to do your submission. And the idea that what we're hoping to do tonight is perhaps even before the end of the hour, we are hoping to be able to have you let you have get your submission written, and perhaps even if you want to try, send it in. And then you've kind of done your duty. So that would be really great if we can do that. Let me let me start out. We don't have a huge group, so most probably we can do this way. When we set this up, so the idea when setting this one up was to ask, does anyone have, the idea would be, let's not have to rewrite if you've given a lot of details, particularly about your circumstances in your original submission or original submissions. Let's take the opportunity to just use that and kind of recycle it in the spirit of reuse, recycle, whatever else you're supposed to do. We thought, let's recycle it and sorry, and just try and find that as an easy way of doing this. Easier way of doing this, because we know this is the beginning of the year. Everyone's completely overloaded, registering kids and trying to get into different programs and finding tutors. So let me just ask. But I was asked to start off by checking this. So what you can perhaps do, if you don't mind, is give me a thumbs up if you've got your old submission, or perhaps would like to take a minute or two to go and find it before we start. So let me see how many people have an old submission. If you don't mind, just put your thumbs up, and then we can. Okay, so I see already got one. Great. I may not say your name just as an issue, because we're recording tonight. So I recognize that I've seen one thumbs up. So if I don't say your name, I'm not being rude. I'm just respecting, just trying to respect privacy so that we can record this and send it out without any too many concerns. Same issue with if there's any specific questions. Oh, great. Actually, someone else is saying they did an oral submission. That's great. So, and if there are any questions, what you do is pop them in the chat. I'll anonymize them and answer them. And then that also was just a way that we can. Okay, excellent. A lot of people actually spoke. That's brilliant. And then what I can do is we can sort of anonymize the questions, and then it just makes it easier to share the recording without any privacy concerns, or disclosing any kind of personal information. Okay, so I don't know if for those who did. So let's go through it as we build this as something where we were going to look at how to use your old submission. Let's use that as a starting point, and particularly perhaps if you wrote out your oral submission just for yourself, maybe even on your cell phone, we can use it. Okay, so let's go here, because I was also just given some tips by Uda, who's looking after her kids, so she can't easily speak. Let me go here. Okay, so if you're going to use your old submission, I'm going to actually share the Pestalozzi. I hope this is I'm going to just share one of the Pestalozzi. There we are. I hope everyone can see that. I'm just going to share one of the Pestalozzi templates as a sort of starting point. And then we'll go. So I'll go through that, and then we'll mention. So how we're going to do this evening is going to sort of go through these instructions, which are very clear. Thank you to Uda, who's the person who developed these primarily. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through these instructions. And we'll go through each section. We'll also sort of open the floor for a bit of Q&A as we at the end of each section, end of each sort of section that we're going through, where you can ask questions if you like. And then we're going to give you a few minutes to actually write into your submission, and then go from there. We'll go on from there until we've kind of completed the process. And as I said, let's hope that we can do it in even less than an hour. And also, if at any stage you want to speak or have any issue to raise, just raise your hand, and we can also hand the mic over to you. Make it a sort of interactive session. Okay, so starting out, very important, please do not send this template in as it is. Follow the instructions in the template. I know that Uda, I think, was part of the team of the people who handled some of the anonymous submissions back in 2017. And there were a few people who just kind of copied the template and just sent the template in. So please don't send the template in as it is. Follow the instructions carefully. So when you're using the template, the words in black can be left as it is. The words in red must be removed. And the words in blue must be stated in your own words and the original blue words removed. So the idea here is we really are trying to get, the idea behind these templates is we're just trying to make it easy for people to write. So a lot of people just, a lot of people struggle with what am I going to write? And we've seen a lot of things on the groups, people saying, I'd love to write and I'm just not sure how to do it. So the template really is there to act as a prompt, get your story out there. We try, certainly it's a trust principle. I from Learn Free, am sometimes a little bit more free and loose, but it's certainly the trust principle to try and make each of these submissions as unique as possible. And the trust is really there to facilitate your voice. The trust doesn't want to kind of speak with your voice, but just really facilitate your voice. So please, if you're unsure about whether your submission is in order, feel free to send it to us, send it to the trust, that is, at defensor@pestalozzi.org before you submit it, and the trust will have a quick look at it. And it says this template here was developed by the trust. So now so obviously what you're going to first do is you're going to fill in the date, 16th, if you're working on it for today. I think just in case not everyone has heard, there is the trust originally, and there's a number of other people wrote in when the closing date, or when the deadline for the submission period was given or was announced, the trust and a number of other people wrote in to ask for an extension, given that the submissions had to be prepared both during the exam period for many people, and then during over the sort of Christmas break or over the festive season. And so there is an extension. An extension has been granted. You may have seen it on the groups, until the 31st of January, 4 o'clock. So let me just say that again, just in case no one heard. An extension has been granted until the 31st of January. Sorry, I'm actually using an old template here that I think's got a mistake, but we'll go there. 31st of January, 2024. So just the template that I've got up is an old PDF. I'm not working off the ones that were necessarily sent out. So just here, make sure you change your date to 2024. So you do have an extension till the 31st of January 2024. Please try and encourage, if you have done or sent your submission in, please make use of this extension by trying to encourage and help others to send a submission in. We want as many submissions as possible going in. Okay, so there's the date issue. Just a reminder again, say it once more. There is, since as of today, there's been an extension till the 31st of January 2024. And if you are writing or using the template, just make sure you've changed your date here. And if you're going to be using if you're using your old submission, maybe most of your information is in your old submission, and you're not too worried about adding too much more to it. You're going to be editing out of that doc. Just please remember to change the date. It's not the end of the world, but it would be. But just let's get it right, and then we have fewer things wrong. Okay, so the then market attention for the secretary, Ms. Noluthando Skaka, and then address it to Mr. Nchabeleng, the chairperson of the select committee. That's what SC means. Select Committee on Education and Technology, Sports, Arts, and Culture. The select committees in the NCOP are much bigger. They cover a lot more portfolios than the portfolio committees in basic education. Now, this is just something you must be aware of, that you change if you are using your old submission. So just copy and paste from these. I have seen some people going back to the submissions that they made in 2017 to the DBE. So just be sure you're not submitting to the DBE this time. You're submitting to the National Council of Provinces in the National Parliament. And also not like the submissions we did in 2023, middle of 2023. This change of years is starting to get to me. That we did on the BELA Bill to the PCBE, the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education in the National Assembly. So make sure that it says Ms. Noluthando Skaka, not anyone in I think it was the late Mr. Ledwaba was taking them was receiving the submissions in the DBE. And oh gosh, no, the ones that go all the way backward were to actually advocate. Oh, his name has gone out of my mind, but yeah. So don't worry, the right person to send it to, attention, Ms. Noluthando Skaka, and these are the details. So just make sure you don't send it to the DBE and you're not sending it to the Portfolio Committee on Basic Education in the National Council of Provinces if you're using your old submission. Okay, so then this is where you most probably are going to then, of course, just say that it's about the Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill. That most probably will not have changed from your other submissions. But some people may want to be using, if you remember, it was quite a hectic period back in 2017. We first had to do submissions on the BELA Bill, and then we did submissions on the policy on home education. So just be sure here where you're writing the title that you don't leave policy on home education in, and that you've changed it to Basic Education Laws Amendment Bill. I know from doing many years of copywriting in the media industry that you'll write this beautiful copy throughout the whole document, and the one thing you'll miss is a headline. So make sure you change the headline up front, and then just also maybe get someone else to check it for you and just have a look to see that you've changed the headlines. If you're going to be using, say, for example, if you're going to use the document you sent in for the policy on home education comments, which was like a month after BELA Bill back in 2017, just make sure you're changing those details. And this is where you must probably going to then be lifting out the most from your old submission, giving a brief introduction to your family. Why did you start homeschooling? What curriculum and approach do you use? Why it benefits your family? If you're not homeschooling yourself, explain what relation you have to homeschooling. So someone else, a family member, and please invite aunts, uncles, family, friends, grandfathers, grandmothers, great-grandfathers, great-grandmothers, anyone to submit. Let them say, I'm a supporter of homeschooling, or I'm a concerned citizen, or they can describe themselves any way they like. They can maybe, if they're a grandparent, explain what impact homeschooling has had on their grandchildren, so encourage them to put that in, or just say in general how the bill will affect you. You don't have to put these details in. So that's where I'm going to just give everyone so I don't know, are there any questions? Please feel free to ask any questions now at this stage, and then we can, if there are any questions, we can answer them. And then we'll give you a few minutes to maybe either grab that from your old document, or to just get that in or write that in. So we're going to give everyone a few minutes to do, well, first to ask questions and then a few minutes to do that. Okay, let me just answer one or two questions from the chat. And some of these questions also raise some other issues. So just also remember, at this stage, we're writing to the National Council of Provinces. Maybe to make that clear, we're writing to Cape Town at this moment. And for Malanga, also, I just want to ask anyone to mute who's joining. I'll just try to find where the noise is coming from quickly. If you're writing to, unless you want to speak. So please just raise your hand if you want to speak. So just remember, we're not writing at the moment to the provincial legislatures, although people do have to write to Mpumalanga by the 31st, and we're waiting for all those other dates. So just a good point from the chat, just to remember that, because we're the PT here is that we're kind of writing twice, once to the National Council of Provinces and once to your provincial legislatures. And you can pretty much do the same letters if you like, but I think we'll do a few sessions, but we'll do some sessions or see how we can help, because it would be good to kind of personalize, if you want to, and I really do understand this is a lot of work, just to your province as well, issues in your province. So someone was saying they're going to write to KZN, and there's a number of issues that you should raise in KZN specifically. And we can talk about those when we get closing dates for KZN's written submissions. And that would be different from other provinces. KZN has other issues. They've got regulations in KZN which are still on the law books, even though they don't apply them. They've got issues with KZN doesn't have joint liaison committees. KZN doesn't have representation on the national task team that's writing the regulations. So there's a lot of KZN specific stuff. And I saw someone asking about Eastern Cape, and I'm going to cover that for you as well. So those are some specific KZN issues. I'll just go through those again. Sorry, I do sometimes, or I don't sometimes, I always speak quickly. So let me just go through the KZN issues, and then I'll get to the Eastern Cape issues. KZN, if you want to do it now, if you're getting ready, 3 big issues, and there most probably are more, but 3 big issues in KZN. 1, KZN has regulations that are on the law books, which they do not. That's the KZN law books. And they would apply those regulations that only apply in KZN, but they haven't been removed from the law books. And you can certainly raise that issue, and we can discuss. Perhaps we'd have even a special session on KZN, why that's problematic in the BELA Bill, but it has impact in a couple of places. One is in the socioeconomic impact assessment. It's not mentioned that they're regulations, and that's something they should have done. Another area that there's a problem with that is another issue that's a problem is that BELA Bill will only override those regulations where they're in conflict. So the poor average parent's going to have to read, in strict law terms, you're going to have to read BELA Bill and have it applied and apply that. And then you're going to have to look at the regulations and say, does this conflict? If it does, I have to follow BELA Bill. If it doesn't, I still have to follow it. So that whole thing needs to be cleaned up, and those regulations need to be abrogated. So that's the regulations issue. Also, you don't have a joint liaison committee in KZN. A joint liaison committee is a group set up where home educators or homeschoolers and the department get together along, and that's actually been very, very effective in a number of provinces, Gauteng, Western Cape, for example. So there's nothing in KZN, so we need to argue for that in KZN. KZN's got the 3rd most homeschoolers in the country, so they really should have that. And then because you don't have a JLC in KZN, you're not represented on the national task team that's writing the regulations. And I think all of us who are on the national task team would love to see 1 or 2, but preferably 3 strong voices from KZN on that task team. Okay, someone says, as I said, not going to mention anyone's names just from a privacy concern issue. I used all my previous letters and my oral submission and combined it all into my NCOP submission. That's great. I ever now sit with an 8-page letter. Is this going to be too long? No, you can almost never write too long. Yeah, you can almost never write too long for these submissions. But also let me just also not discourage anyone and say you also can't write too short. So if you can just, any submission is better than no submission. And even if you could write one page, you can write one page impactfully. So please don't feel I can't write some long thing. You can literally just focus on one issue, introduce yourself, mention that you are opposed to the bill, focus on one issue, and if that's all you can do, that's great. Klaar and tot ziens, and that's fine. You can certainly do that, but it's much better to do something than to do nothing. But there's no limit to the length that you can write, and Parliament has to go through your letter and note all of your issues. Any particular issues for the Eastern Cape? Eastern Cape, the similarity with, so we've actually struggled with the Eastern Cape because we can't really identify if there's a joint liaison committee in the Eastern Cape, and just apologies for the thunder in the background. I felt thunderstorm, but and we don't seem to be able to find people when we meet as a group, as a national task team from the Eastern Cape. So in the Eastern Cape, two big issues to raise are, where's my JLC and where are my representatives on the national task team? Any specific issues for Limpopo? Now, Limpopo, same as Eastern Cape. That's a slightly different issue in that I don't think there's been sort of, well, we know that there's no one in the Eastern Cape, in Limpopo. So please, for Limpopo, once again, mention no joint liaison committee in the Western, in Limpopo, and no representatives from Limpopo on the national task team. And I know there's an association in formation in Limpopo. So please get in touch with them and raise those issues in Limpopo. What are the big issues in Gauteng to address? Gosh, I must maybe ask, like someone, Udo or someone who's from the Gauteng Association or helps the Gauteng Association could say. But I'm not aware of any big issues in Gauteng. Gauteng has got a JLC, very effective one. They're the one that's met the most in the and there's a big one coming up here. For Northwest, I'll get there. But Gauteng has no particular issue, no special issues to address for Gauteng, as far as I'm aware. They have a very high functioning JLC that meets quarterly, good relationship with the department, and they've got a number of representatives on the national task team, and those are very active representatives. So that's actually great. So Gauteng is golden from that perspective. I think the big issue in Gauteng, just this is a general issue in Gauteng, is the issue of Gauteng is one of the few provinces where the department has got very little incentive to try and get your kids into school because the Gauteng schools are full. So arguments in Gauteng around no places in schools for homeschoolers are actually effective. I was saying in another talk I gave on one of these subjects that I once tried that tactic in one of the other provinces, and they opened their eyes very gleefully and said, no, sure, we'll place these kids in school tomorrow, kind of thing. And then I had to backtrack. So Gauteng is one of those places where you can bring that issue. Any particular issues for the Northwest? Northwest, like the KZN, you guys have regulations. So raise the regulations issues. So you got to raise that issue about regulations because you're exactly in the same situation as KZN, and they also have regulations. And as far as I'm aware, there are Northwest representatives on the JLC, but I must just maybe someone can correct me or double check. Sorry, so we've answered those questions and spent quite a bit of time here. Any questions relating to the give the brief introduction? And let me then ask, so if there's any more questions there, please ask. And if you're not ready to move on, could you raise your hand? Could you just give me a thumbs up? So it's a bit weird But if you're not ready to move on, give me a thumbs up. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so next part, I reject the BELA Bill for the following. I reject the BELA Bill for the following reasons. And then choose 3 of the 5 points below that are most important to you. Delete the points that you do not want to address. Yeah, so what you can do here is you can do a bit of I'll go through the points in a second, but you can do a bit of mix and match here. If you're not 100% sure, just choose whatever you'd like to object to. This is from the pressed for time template of the Pestalozzi Trust. So it's sort of ideally suited to someone who wants to do it quickly. But could I ask everyone not to choose 1, 2, and 3? Just randomize it a little bit. Let's all just go through this and choose someone on a random basis. Unless, of course, you feel very passionate about one of these, 1, 2, and 3. That's great. But just I want everyone doing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then also delete the points that you don't want to address. And then you can then restate each of these 3 or 5 points in your own words. And the easiest way to do that is to read through the sentence or paragraph, then write down what you remember without looking back to the original sentence or paragraph. Don't just copy and paste. Now, let me also, so that's, once again, great advice. Let me just say here that don't feel that you have to completely master each of these very complicated topics at this stage. You can just raise them because people like the Pestalozzi Trust have done an in the process of doing an extensive submission, multiple parts, going in depth into each of these issues. The purpose of this is for you to raise your concerns, but then also as they're sitting in that, as the officials sit with this matrix, they will have most probably seen the Pestalozzi Trust's very extensive treatment, say, of the socioeconomic impact assessment issues. And, that runs into a number of pages. And then they're going to kind of almost tick on a little block. Okay, Pestalozzi Trust said it. And then, Mr. Jones said it. Mr. Smith said it. Miss and Chabaleng said it. Mr. Moloto said it. So they're going to tick off, won't necessarily put your names down, but they're going to go through, and just as they go through your submission, they're going to tick that off, and then they're going to say at the end, they'll almost, they'll go to the Pestalozzi document and summarize and say, these are the 6 or 7 things that people raised, or 10 or 15 or 20 on socioeconomic impact assessment, and it was 50 people that raised that issue, or 150 or 200 or whatever the number is. So please here, don't feel that you have to kind of be the absolute master of any of these subjects. So let me go through them just briefly and then ask you if you need any help linking these, or if there's any questions, because this is kind of the heart or the meat and potatoes. Okay. Big argument, the bill is procedurally flawed and not based on research. Sorry, just having a load shedding moment here. And I'm just checking that I'm still on. Can anyone hear me? Just give me a thumbs up if you can hear me.